Though Qiao Hao asked Jamon to come over early to pick her up to go to the set, when she arrived, it was already late. The time was almost 11 in the afternoon. Jamon didn't drive in but stopped the car outside of the mansion's courtyard. Qiao Hao bid Madame Cheng goodbye and walked over, grabbing her bag. Just then, Jamon, who had already turned the car around, stopped by the pavement in front of the gates. Just when Qiao Hao was about to cross the road, a Mercedes-Benz stopped right in front of the mansion. She abruptly stopped in her tracks, about to go around the car, when she saw the car open. Lu Jinian's assistant stepped out from the front passenger seat and stepped back to open the car door in the back. Lu Jinian stepped out of the car and walked forward 2 steps. He saw Qiao Hao at the gates of the courtyard and immediately stopped walking. The two of them stood about a meter apart. Neither of them spoke first. The assistant didn't notice the situation behind him. He paid the chauffeur, then turned to see Lu Jinian standing without moving. He couldn't help but call out, puzzled, "Mr. Lu." He took 2 steps forward and saw that Qiao Hao was in front of Lu Jinian. In that instant, he politely greeted her, "Hello, Miss Qiao." Qiao Hao snapped back to reality and nodded slightly at the assistant. She tightly grabbed the bag in her hands and looked away from Lu Jinian. Then she shifted 2 steps to the side, around Lu Jinian, and rushed over to the street. She walked away hurriedly, and didn't even notice that the car Lu Jinian had called had already started up. She was dangerously close to being hit, but luckily, Lu Jinian reacted just in time. He suddenly pulled her arm, which made her take 2 steps back, and the car slowly drove off in front of her. The assistant jumped in fright. He looked over at Qiao Hao, slightly pale, and asked, "Miss Qiao, are you okay?" Qiao Hao forced herself to calm down and shook her head at the assistant. Then she realized that Lu Jinian had grabbed her arm. His palms were soft and warm. Her body stiffened. She raised her head and looked at Lu Jinian. His head was lowered, his pitch-black eyes staring directly at her. She instinctively lowered her eyes, and hesitated for a moment, before she struggled to pull her arm out of his grip. Without a sound, she lowered her head and walked off towards the streets. Lu Jinian's hand froze rigidly in the air, still seeming as though he was holding something. He held on to that pose, as he stared straight at Qiao Hao's figure. Qiao Hao pulled the car door open, and Jamon, who was on the phone, turned her head and blew a kiss. She hung up the phone, started up the car, and drove off. The car took a turn up the road ahead. Even when they completely disappeared, Lu Jinian was still standing, blanked out, on the spot. After following Lu Jinian for so many years, his assistant could smell that something was wrong. He instinctively stepped a few steps away from Lu Jinian, and kept himself quiet, as he pretended to be deaf and mute. After a long while, Lu Jinian's handsome and refined eyes blinked gently. He pulled his eyes back from afar, then put his hand down. He calmly turned his head and strode over to the mansion without a sound. The assistant waited for Lu Jinian to walk ahead for some distance before he started striding in after him. According to many years of experience, he knew that though Lu Jinian looked quite calm, at this moment in time, it was actually when his mood was the worst.